5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm hearing echoes. You try YouTube, Jess. Oops, my mic's on. Hey, YouTubers and friends, welcome to another Tuesday night Hangout Live with my good friends ToledoJess and Mrs. Briggs of the Treasure Vixens. We have a really good guest tonight. You might have seen him on the History Channel, Legends of the Superstitions. So get your questions ready, because here in a little while we'll be with Wayne Tuttle, and you know the rest. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Hey, YouTubers and friends, thanks for joining us for another episode of Tuesday Night Hangout Live with ToledoJess, Dano, the Treasure Vixens, and I. Thanks for the super chat. Oh, and leave it to me to leave. I thought I had all that stuff checked too, Jesse. Dano's not here. It's one of those days, people. How's everyone doing tonight out there?
We talking to us?
Oh, I was waiting for the chat to reply.
And yeah, sure, guys, those mics are hot. I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you two tonight.
You having a case of the Mondays, Ed?
Yeah, kind of. And today at work was just one of those days, you know. And I'm commuting quite a ways. Last two jobs, I've been commuting quite a ways. But I see all kinds of Killer Flash family in the house.
Oh, big time. There's the world's greatest moderator, Mr. Lodak.
Oh, I got to give him a big shout out for last Sunday. He was on the chat. He was on it. He helped take care of a couple nasty comments, and we really
He's awesome that way. I mean,
so fast. We didn't even
I don't know.
didn't even get to see the comments. We just know that
Right,
he
I
got
know.
it right off of there.
Yeah, he's like, he smells them, I swear.
I'm telling you. Sometimes I'll be looking. What happened? What happened?
Right, yeah. What did it say? What did they say? Yeah, we didn't even. Ansel got to see it for just a second, but I didn't even get a. It was already gone by the time I looked.
Dano's still at work moto mining,
Yep.
and I'm glad you're all good. Mike, JC Peener, blue-footed booby.
Hey, what's up, Ottis?
I'm okay.
Vanjetta Prospecting and
I see gold squats here.
and Madison, Maine, Mining Magnets. Hey, what's up?
Had one of my BFFs, Blair Force, number 226 here, and
Yeah,
outdoor
cool.
influencer and snorkel pirate.
Yeah, Jeffrey, good to see you. Aaron, Larson's Prospecting, good to see you.
Shaw Prospecting.
Yeah. Ottis Farris, good seeing you.
Adventures with Goat.
Yeah, you did miss Prospecting 101 when I was talking about the website, the diggings, and My Land Matters. Yes, I used Back Home. I used Our Valley, My Old Claims.
Hello,
You missed
Lisa.
it.
I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name.
We never do either. We just say Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Hey, JC, official gold digger.
GS Prop. Did we say hi to David Villa?
Hey, Ted.
Yeah.
David
Yeah. Every
Villa.
single time. I'm sorry. Every time.
Ouch.
That's Bob Villa. Or is it Bob Villa, too?
Oh. What? Richard Davis, what's up?
Hey. Melanie and Richard Davis watching on their big screen TV.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess I didn't use that. Thanks for the super chat at the very beginning for nothing, but here's another one.
Thanks
Snorkel
for the
Pirate.
super chat.
Oh, Snorkel Pirate's getting ready to do another magnet giveaway, guys, for New Year's.
Wow, cool.
If you haven't gotten a magnet yet and you're looking to try to win one, check out the channel because he's going to do, I don't know, you know what, Snorkel? I started to watch the video. I didn't finish it. Are you doing it on New Year's Day? New Year's Eve? When are you doing it?
He brought it up when I asked for his coupon code because I bought the exact same kit he's given away. Jeff, how you doing? Smith's Gold, good to see you. And Two Toes, our friend Two Toes, our sensei with the metal detector. If you're lurking out there, hello.
Hello, Gary.
I was watching his video today where he's finding nuggets in a road.
Yes, of course he is.
That guy could find nuggets on Maui, I tell you. He could find gold anywhere.
Yes, I actually watched that video too.
And Nugget Brain Peterson of Watts is not here. Our friend Wayne Peterson is not here. He just said it in the room, and I think I'll believe him.
Hello, Gemstone Judy.
Judy's good to see you.
Yeah, glad you're here.
And HD, if you're at work, maybe you're listening. Marty's nuts about digging and coins. Hello. Marlon, good to see you. I thought I saw you in here earlier.
Cheryl Me, thank you very much. Give me a little bit of bragging rights for a second. The Treasure Vixens just hit 5,000 subs, guys.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much,
Congratulations.
Cheryl. Yeah, appreciate it.
You girls are doing fab.
So did you hear what Rose and I were talking about, Ed? Well,
I think he was in Out There Land.
when he was in Out There Land,
Yeah.
I notice a lot of times when they pull stuff up, they think they know what they have, but they don't always know what they have.
Mhm.
When
When
you
I said
talked
you should
about what
bring-
they found when we
bring
were with
something
them.
on. Yeah. Bring something on the show. Maybe these guys might help them identify. But I suggest you make it something challenging.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think it's a fantastic idea. I love to challenge all of you guys. Also, the knowledge pooled in from
Sure.
everybody else may really be able to help us figure out what some of these unidentifiable items are, or bring in ones that people are disputing. The one person says it's one
there you
thing
go,
and
that
another
too,
person
yeah.
says it's another. Yeah, that's for sure.
Like Liars Club or something. Ted.
Oh yeah, super chat.
Thank you for the super chat. Don G, good to see you. All our friends from down under. I agree with Jesse. You should bring them on and kind of share them and
One or two items, every once in a while, especially when you got something to,
like when we have open line Tuesdays and
Yeah, there you go.
show us
Yeah.
what you got
Yeah,
and
There you
stuff
go.
like that.
cool.
yeah.
So
Sometimes I want to yell at you. No, it's this, not that.
I like it when we get real stumped or when we definitely don't know what it is. We'll just make something up, like our bacon metal and stuff like that. So
I haven't. You guys haven't been finding very many murder instruments.
not recently, no. I mean, it just it's such a gamble. You think you're going to go into an area where you're going to pull out all the murder weapons there are and find nothing. So it's just hit or miss.
Strings,
Yeah,
red frames, and
yeah,
washing machines.
and lots of rebar.
Yeah.
lots of rebar.
Oh, rebar. You still have all that, right?
Oh yeah, I got a giant scrap pile. It's huge.
There's people that use that to make mining tools.
Oh, we've also been told that leaf springs people use to turn into knives. They
Oh yeah.
Oh, they also use leaf springs for like mining Herkimers and fossils and stuff. You
Oh,
use them to split the rock, like wedges.
hmm.
But I think
Like
we
feathers? Like they like feathers?
yeah
Okay.
feather wedges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Well, I was just gonna say let's bring on Wayne, but
Yeah, but he disappeared.
poof. So
But
there he is.
So even all that trash that you guys pull out, like that rebar, that's all to be made into tools.
Yeah, or art, or I mean, there's so many different things that could be done with it. So there's parts of us, where we're looking forward to scrapping it, and then there's other parts where like, well, if we hang on to it, maybe one day on a cold day or something, we can bundle up and go do something with it. So it's, I don't know, it's like this inner hoarder mental.
Just scrap it.
Just scrap it. Right.
So we should bring our guest in. Where he goes, what the hell are these people talking?
Yeah, I thought they were gonna come here and talk about my YouTube channel and my TV show and all that, my music and treasure, and here they are just talking about leaf springs.
Talking scrap.
Let me pin him up and all right, everybody, let the beatings begin. Wayne, how are you tonight, and how's Arizona this evening?
Arizona is very cool, but it's not cold, of course. And doing pretty good. Found out I got everything hooked up, and then found out they didn't plug in the power cord, so I was almost out of power here. So that was, yeah, I got power again. Yeah, it's good help is hard to find, especially when it's your own.
Very good, very good.
I saw our friend Colleen, who lives in Arizona. They got snow today.
Yeah, it would have been up north. I mean, up north near Flagstaff.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 hours north of here. They'll get feet of snow. They get more snow than everyone gets back east. But you get 2 hours south and you're in the Sonoran Desert. And we see it maybe every 7 or 8 years. We'll get a dust, but that's about it.
When I lived in Riviera and Bullhead area, I would drive up to Flagstaff to the San Francisco Peaks to the Arizona Snow Bowl, I believe it is, and do some skiing.
Yeah, that's where my oldest son's going to college right now up at NAU. So, but he's down here for the holidays, so he isn't missing the snow. I mean, because it pretty much just it's feet and feet of snow up there usually through the winter. But down here, it's usually generally pretty, except for occasional rain, where it's going to stay pretty dry and just cool most of the winter. So that's the reason we live here.
Right. I'm getting to that age where I'd like to get out of where I'm dealing with snow and ice and stuff. Couple more years before I can retire. So, unless something happens, you know.
I'm just waiting for my wife to retire so we can get out of here, head south.
Change our latitude. Probably help a lot with our attitude, especially during the winter. Yeah. I think driving to work today, it was 17 degrees.
So be ready for the winter advisory we got right now, Ed.
Oh, yeah, I know about it. You know, with my trade, brother, I keep an eye on the weather.
Yep. We got snow. And it's coming.
It's going to be ice and stuff first before it snows.
Okay.
But don't kid yourself and don't get cold here, because I've been back in the Superstitions plenty of times. It's been 5-10 degrees in the morning. It's just there's no precipitation, so you don't get the snow.
Oh yeah.
I got stuck on Highway 10 in Arizona a long time ago. For 3 days out in the desert on 10, out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere on 10. I got stuck out there, and I'll tell you what, the difference between day and night is like day and night.
Oh yeah.
In the temperatures, it will be hot all day, but as soon as that sun goes down,
it's freezing.
Holy crap! It's like, what happened? You know, somebody put you in an ice box. It was nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, but a lot of people kind of forget about that. The deserts can get, and I know that, the Saudi desert and so forth, they can get really cold at night during the winter. It's just that there's such a huge temperature difference between them all. The only difference is if you're up in a rocky area, the rocks will hold the heat. So sometimes those areas will stay a little warmer at night because the rocks will release the heat. But if you're out in the open desert with the dirt and stuff, as soon as that heat releases, that's it. It just cools down immediately.
Yeah, it's break out the winter jacket,
I don't know. When it was 10 degrees, I was still in just a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans. So it doesn't matter how hot or cold. I pretty much kind of usually dress the same regardless, and just kind of figure you work it out. If it's that cold, it'll be up in the 60s within a few hours. So, and same goes the other way when it's really hot. Well, actually, it doesn't cool off in the summer. That's the one thing I will warn you about. The summertime, it usually doesn't drop much below 85, 90 degrees most of the summer.
Yeah,
So-
cooling off in the summertime, it's dropped down to 80.
You need air conditioning and a swimming pool to exist.
Yeah.
So,
My grandparents were from Tucson, and they used to tell me, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's a dry heat. It's not as bad because it's a dry heat." And I was like, "Are you guys crazy?" I was like, "It is hot no matter what." I don't, I always think it's so silly when they say it's a dry heat.
I think the best way to describe it is basically heat up the oven to about 450 degrees and then open the door and stand in front of it. That's what the Arizona summer feels like. It's just a baking heat. You don't even sweat. It just dries you right out.
Yeah.
So, but you get used to that type of thing and the changes in the temperature like you do anywhere else.
Right.
So it's over time, it's right now. I love it because, you can actually physically try to keep yourself warm by moving. And when you're back in the mountains, you can have a fire. There's certain, you can layer yourself, but during the summer is the most difficult part because you just can't cool yourself off sometimes.
Yeah. No, do you get you said no precipitation, so I guess it's super dry there. No, do you guys get any of the monsoons? I'm just trying to think about my time there.
This year we got pretty much absolutely no monsoon. So we're getting every 3 months a day of maybe some rain. Wow. And then other than that, it's been dry as a bell. So we've had like one of the areas of the Superstitions up on the Apache Trail by Fish Creek Hill. It got so bad it dried out, and then we had the fires and they burned everything through. Then we finally got the rain, but then it washed all the boulders out and destroyed the road. Yeah. So it's not quite the mudslides like California gets, but it wiped out sections of the road, and they're saying it may permanently have to be closed now because of the damage. And so that is one of the problems out here. We get those extreme different types of things. And like I said, just this year, this last rain that came through that dumped the snow up north, I think we just got a trace of sprinkles. I saw it on my windshield, but I never felt it. So it's kind of hard this year because the snowfall will help because it'll fill the reservoirs. But down here in the desert, it's been wicked dry for probably the last 2 years.
So you live close by to the Superstition Mountains?
No, I do not.
No, you do not. You have to travel.
My problem is if I lived within, say, 30 minutes of the mountains, I'd get fired. I wouldn't go to work. I've always been notorious all my life of just taking off and do whatever I want. So purposely, I live on the other side of the county. So it takes me, I have to kind of say, okay, I'm going out there and have to kind of plan it out. And it's much better for me. Now, I live out by the White Tank Mountains out near Surprise, out going towards Wickenburg. So I'm still out in the desert out here. And there's plenty of gold country out behind me. But the Superstitions, everyone has that favorite spot, that place they have to be. And I would literally get up every morning, and if I lived at the base of the mountains, I would want to just go in the mountains. And I know myself well enough that it's just easier for me to put a little distance between there.
So are you still actively looking for the legend, the actual mine, or are you?
We're always doing. Well, we're always up to something.
Right.
There's all these different things. If anybody has watched the YouTube, we were looking for the Degrazia paintings for a while. We had a lot of information. We came in with that, and it was in the search area where we'd been looking ever since the TV show in the Fish Creek Hill and the Fish Creek and along Horse Mesa. We'd been really actively looking back in there, and we're finding a lot of stuff because of what I mentioned with the rain and the lack of rain, and then the everything else going on. The fires burned through. We moved kind of the area we've been working in now, so we kind of transferred out of that area because it's the closures and so forth. So we've been kind of up to some other things. There's YouTube stuff we were midway through finishing a bunch of episodes, and we kind of got kicked out for a while. Then COVID came. And Frank didn't want to go back in the mountains very much. So we kind of curtailed all that. And that's where, if anybody watches on Mondays on YouTube, we do the Chasing Legends thing. and where I tell the
try
stories and do that
captures.
stuff. And that stuff came since I knew we weren't going to be able to finish the other filming. I figured I'd go back to doing that stuff once a week until we could get our filming legs back up, which we have now. We've been going back out in the mountains, but it's going back, getting familiar, looking at some of the stuff. We always like to look at things that people who say they think they found it, check out what they're talking about. We like to look at, you know, always scratching your head. Why did this guy dig this 60-foot pit in the middle of nowhere? We like to go, I like to go down those little holes and just check stuff out. And you try to get behind the psychology of what people did or why they did it, because there's so many Dutch hunters, so many different stories. So we started kind of exploring some of that. So what people generally see is probably a good 15-20% of what we do. And then there's a lot of stuff we do that we're worried about because of safety. We don't want anybody to do anything that is particular, give them the idea to do something that's unsafe because we did it.
Yeah, I was gonna
And we all,
oh, sorry.
yeah, one of the things we try to do is try to push that, and the stuff we were doing was very unsafe. So what we hope in those instances is that we show people enough of what we're doing or how we're doing it that they say, hey, it's great, I saw what he filmed, or what I don't have no desire to go there.
Yeah.
Because that's tough because you don't want someone to get hurt, but you don't want them to get lured to say, oh, I want to go there and check out where, you know, they were, and then they see the hole and they go down in it and something happens. I think there's an early video I did where I'm in this abandoned mine shaft. I think it was the Monte Cristo, and I point out in it, I'm wearing no hard hat. I'm just in a cowboy hat, but I'm pointing out where all the beams have shifted and where the thing's ready to collapse. And I wanted people to really kind of get the ideas. Like, I'm not being stupid, but I wanted to point out to people, you don't want to be in this situation because everything's ready to go. It's ready to collapse. There's things just ready to give away everywhere. And I wanted people to get that in of, I'll take you there. I'll show it to you. I'll get you up close as I possibly can. But I don't necessarily want to put someone in harm's way, or especially where they think it's okay to take their children to those places. Because if anyone ever notices, you never see me putting either of my boys in that circumstance. So it's kind of touchy with us because we're always doing something, and then we sometimes come back and we look at it and say, well, that was really cool. But I really don't want someone to figure out where that place is and either damage it or cause some problem to them, because I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about someone getting hurt because I'm stupid. If I do something stupid, that's on me. If I do something and someone else does it, then that's on me too. Have
you ever hurt yourself or put yourself in severe danger? Like, you look back now and was like, I shouldn't have done that? Yeah,
I do stupid things all the time. So no, I'm generally, when I was younger, I bounced better. I have a tendency, what was it? I once decided to change out my flag out front of the house, and I decided it was a good idea to use a chair and the trash can and then use it as like a staircase, and then the trash can left and I went through the chair, and my main reaction was look around to see if my neighbors saw me go through the chair. And then I basically kicked the trash can away and drugged myself with the chair wrapped around me into the garage and pushed the button and shut the door. I hurt really bad from that, and that kind of gives you an idea of like when I'm least crazy. So I have this weird thing where I think I'm pretty durable, even though I know right now at my age I'm not as durable. But I always think, well, if I'm there, I always seem to come out. And I know it's a bad way of thinking, but I think it's okay for me because I'll always come out somehow. Someone else, I'm not so sure about. So people will see a tendency when we go into places. I might go first, we'll film it, and then I'll say, that's cool for everybody. And then we'll all go in. Yeah. But I can't tell you how many times, most every trip, and there's some of the YouTube videos where I've shown it, where there was the one where I was trying to film and I decided to come down this on Horse Mesa, this really bad spot. And the ground literally was just given away underneath me every step. And it was at an angle. So I decided a controlled slide tumble was the best way to get down about 60, 70 feet. And we couldn't use the footage because it looked really stupid because I was trying to save the camera, you know, and just roll and fall.
Yeah.
And I got to the bottom, and there is footage where I show afterwards my arms were just completely shredded and just blood running down everywhere. And I was by myself, which was really stupid, back in the middle of the mountains. And I just washed it off and then just kept filming and just went on my way. And, you know, afterwards you reflect and go, oh, that was kind of silly, dumb of me. But it also seemed like a really good idea at the time, you know.
Well, you
So-
know, 3 ain't bad. You know, you got the slide and the roll good. The control.
Yeah, and you know, I saved the camera. I saved the camera. So,
Right.
Kind of reminds me of someone this summer in California. When Jesse did his old man dance, but he didn't fall. He sure danced
Didn't fall.
around.
So you said, Wayne, you said something that kind of perked my ear up when you said it, and you just kind of said it kind of really casually. You said you like going out there and trying to figure out why this person dug here, or why did this person think about looking here. Do you find yourself distracted with other people's hunt for the treasure?
now what was that? I didn't catch the back end.
Well, you mentioned that you try to figure out why people were looking in the spots they were looking, you know,
Yeah.
hunting for the treasure. Do you find yourself distracted and wondering, and, you know, maybe trying to figure out their clues to help you?
I'm not going to say I'm too different, because there are other people like me. I'm a kind of a real fact guy. It's got to have a fact. It's got to have a story. I got to be able to research something, find something substantial. I'm not a treasure codes conspiracy guy, any of that kind of stuff. And I do understand those guys. I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I respect very much that are into that sort of thing. I don't always understand the psychology behind it, because it's like a forever losing cause in a way. They just never can seem to resolve. They literally sometimes in a lifetime will just change course and pick up something else and go a different direction. I always go out there and I look at what people are looking for and try to understand why they tell the story they do. And recently, the stuff we're doing now is very similar to that. When we lay it out, the episodes, people will see we're looking at these 5-6 different possibilities of what people, it became something of a hallucination where every person in this particular area was finding or seeing or thinking something different. And it really kind of caught us, because we were looking at it and going, the one thing nobody thought it was the Lost Dutchman, but the area did have an added mine tunnel, and it had an intercepting pit above it. So it actually fit some of the odd descriptions, but no one ever thought of it that way. They thought of it all these other ways. And we were kind of looking at it as like, why doesn't each person that puts 10, 15 years of their life into something have a completely different experience, a completely different visual record in their memory of what they think they went through, what they found, what they saw. And so we'll go out, and what we'll do is we'll start sampling. We'll look around to see, you know, what the geology of the area is, what they could have had, what they could have been looking for, what drove them there. Then we'll try to find people that knew them if we can't find the person themselves, and just to ask them, what were they doing out there? Was it just to get away from the wife? Because that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
There are guys that can make up a whole fantasy thing just to get away from home. It's just to go have beers with the boys and sit out in the desert. So we look at all that stuff, and then we'd metal detect, and we'll look for artifacts to try to conclude, you know, how long has it been people have been out there? Because let's face it, everyone leaves trash. And you can find some spots 50, 60, 70 year old trash out there, and it gives you an idea of how serious it was. And sometimes it's simple as, all it takes is one person does not know what they're doing, dig a hole, and then you can have hundreds of people afterwards digging holes all over the place because they figure that first guy knew what he was doing. And sometimes that's the conclusion you come to. But, you know, we've been in spots, and I just get fascinated by that psychology of the stories, where I hear layers of stories on stories from people. And I'm thinking there was no discernible reason to be there, but it's fascinating on the storytelling side. Because until you get to the end and realize there was nothing to be, it's a heck of an adventure to go along and just look. And we're talking in one instance through alluvial rock like a gopher hole, 200 feet of tunnel for nothing. No mineralization whatsoever. I've seen that. I've seen people blast 30, 40, 50-foot tunnels through solid rock with no other mineralization, no quartz, no gold, no idea, nothing to even shine that why they would do it. And you realize in the 40s, 50s, that was a hell of a lot of work for one guy. And you stand there and you look at it and you realize, wow, this guy, you know, if he really put his mind to something else, imagine what he could have done. But you're sitting back sometimes going, why? You know, so I get into those situations and look at the feats they pulled off. And I don't quite understand what the thinking was, but then you know, you can't say they're lazy, because you'll say, well, they lived out in the desert and they didn't have a job, and you know, he really, you know, he didn't have a pot to piss in. But yeah, well, the guy dug a 200-foot tunnel though, and he hauled everything he pulled out of that tunnel. He hauled off down the wash, so nobody could ever know he was digging. And you look at that kind of feat, and today, most of us, we can't even imagine doing that. And so to me, is, you know, you find those stories, and then you look at them, and like I said, then again, you try to put them together with what, you know. Sometimes the funny thing I've learned is, a lot of people really want to go on the adventure. They really want to go out there. They really want the adventure. They don't really want to put the risk or the money or time into it. So they will go right off the road and dig a hole. And they'll find a nice flat spot, and they'll dig this hole for years. And then you usually can find that guy where he was, because he usually throws all his trash in it when he's done. And then, you know, it gets buried over. But there are people like that. It's just purely for that sense of adventure, to sit with your buddies and have a beer and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is something to be said about sitting around with your friends and telling lies around the campfire. That's some of my best times of my life.
Yeah,
It's a
for
great
sure.
time. That's a great time.
We have some, I was going to say, there's a couple questions. You're getting quite a few questions in the chat. Blue-footed Booby asked, besides the thrill of the hunt for treasure and gold, what led Wayne to chase the challenge of lost mines? Did he find traces of anything that Waltz might have left behind?
The honest part about all this is, when I was younger, and I've talked about it before, as I was probably 9-10 years old, I went in a trip basically as a piece of luggage. I was just a kid in a pair of, like, you know, Converse All-Stars, and just with a canteen and stuff, and just tagging along. But I really liked the mountains, and I didn't pay attention probably the first few years, even though I was reading books about it, as much about the legend as I just liked the mountains. And it became this thing. Someone would say, well, you know, so-and-so was over here and he dug a hole and for years and all this. And then I'd want to know where it was. So as I got older, I would just take off on my own and go see what that guy had been doing, what they were talking about, because I loved to see what the story was about. And then it just kept going. And then I found I liked doing the research, and I'd read the books, and I got involved with the Historical Society, and I started compiling and pulling stuff. And then I realized I met all these different guys that told me these stories, and I knew this stuff, and it just kept building up. There was a point in time, I would tell you, I always looked at trying to understand the narratives, the story, and place things where people talked about them and what could be's, but I never actively probably searched for the mine like most Dutch hunters would. That you would think, as these guys set up a camp, because most Dutch hunters pick a spot and they have their little square area, and that's where they think it's going to be, and that's where they spend most of their careers. And people would be surprised at guys, they would say, oh, he's such an expert, yet he didn't cover as much ground as you think. There's areas, you know, there's guys that have been in the mountains 40, 50, 60 years, and then you talk to them and find out they didn't know anything about generally 90% of the mountains, because they just never traveled most of the mountains. And I took a page more from someone like Tom Collenborn, who I respected a great deal, and loved to travel the mountains and see all these places where the stories were, and try to understand why each person, like I said, there's probably been 150 times that people have found the Lost Dutchman, and they continue today, find the mine. And they don't have any gold, but they continue to find the mine. And I love to go out to those and understand what was the idea of why they thought they found it. And also look at the fact of what I learned over time was I was able to get into the research files and dig through things and understand a lot of what we hear about the story, a lot of what you'll see even in the television programming with the writers and stuff is kind of a touristy spin. And there's just not a lot of information really on the real mine and directions, but what there is usually buried under a lot of stuff because people always think it's got to be near Weaver's Needle. I'm sure they've always heard the point of the needle at 4 o'clock points to the entrance of the mine. Walt's never said anything like that. People always say, well, we found it. There's this tunnel on the side of the mountain. Well, it's a pit mine. And it actually it looked like they started a pit and then they gave up, and it was something on the surface brought the Mexicans in, and then they dug a pit, and it was a funneled pit going in an arroyo up high on the mountain. So we get a description of specifically from Waltz what it was. And you take that, and as you travel through the mountains, you look around, and sometimes you stop and you go, wow, wait a minute, what's this? And you look at it, but then you also realize a lot of people decided to dig their own pit for whatever the reason and shape it almost like that because they thought, well, he must have buried it, so I'll just dig this area out because it's probably here. And you get basically what I call like Lost Dutchman Juniors all over the place, which is the thing I'm talking about, that we were looking at. Is sometimes someone finds a tunnel and they figure, well, there should be a pit here. Well, if there isn't, I'll dig one because it's obviously buried. And then you got to follow that logic. And next thing you know is you have a pit and people think, well, it must have been here because there's no gold anymore. But even if there was gold there, generally you can find a trace of something. You'll find in the mineralization some sign that there was gold there or something there, which, and again, Western superstitions, you always hear that thing is there's no gold in the Western superstitions. There's a lot of empty mines in the Western superstitions. And a lot of those empty mines showed signs of gold. They may not have had a ton of gold, like the Mammoth or the Black Queen or the Wasp, but there were a lot of mines that produced gold back in there. It's just once someone cleaned out whatever they were getting through that area, it's gone. And, that was one of the things about the government surveys. They went to all the abandoned old mines and they said, well, there's no gold here, so there must not be any gold in the superstitions, which was a brilliant way to keep people from thinking there's gold in there. So, but yeah, the junior system threw me for years because I couldn't figure out, and someone explained to me, is everybody digs a pit because that's what Waltz dug. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense if you're looking for a mine like that. But most people don't think of it as a covered pit mine. They don't think of it up in an arroyo. They kind of think, well, Google Earth will help me. I don't think Google Earth is going to help you 130 years later. I don't think you're going to see much sign with the resolution. The best Google Earth you got is going to show you. It's really tough, but there's a lot of information out there. There was members of the Peralta family that came forward and talked about some of their mines back in there and talked to, because there was 8 or 9 different mines they spoke of. And those were interesting discussions because you realize there's a reality to it. The Waltz story has to play out somewhat truthful because there's other people that came out unrelated that were Peralta family members and so forth and said, yeah, we did have mines back in here. And then they went through. So you got, they had mines in the superstitions. They had some mines up by Black Canyon City. And they were over a number of different areas. And the ones principally Waltz was involved in was the superstitions. And while people have tried to place him outside of there, one of the problems is he lived at roughly 16th Street and Buckeye Road. And that's where his house was. And we know that's where his house was. And he pointed out to the east and told Julia Thomas and Reinhard Petrash, he pointed east and told them, that's where my mine lies, out there in those Superstition Mountains. Well, how was he wrong? Because he was sitting there with them, and how would they get it wrong? Because he literally pointed to them. It wasn't like on his deathbed. It was 10 months before he died. He's sitting there Christmas morning telling them where he went to find his gold. So that's the stuff I think a lot of people miss. And when you get it, you go out there, and if you've ever been in the superstitions, or especially in the backcountry, one of the things is, anybody who knows, is you get off that trail 20 yards, 30 yards, you can have a hell of a time finding the trail again because it literally gets lost. And there's a great hiking trail system, and you can follow that, and you can always get yourself out. It's a very safe place to hike and do those sorts of things. On the other hand, when you're bushwhacking and stuff, it's a very dangerous place. Like Bluff Springs, the shale, and the loose rock in there. Anywhere you're climbing, everything can give way. And when you slide, and when you get to the end of the slide, there's usually probably a 200-foot drop off, and that's happened to plenty of people. So there's all that danger involved in Dutch hunting as well. So for me, kind of getting back to your question, because that was a long way around. I don't know why I don't know why my phone wants to die on me. I might have to move and find a better place to plug in. But getting back around to it is kind of like, I think it was just that thing of, there was a conversation, Thomas Glover, who's an author of several books, and myself and Jesse Feldman had once, and we all agreed, if there wasn't a treasure story, we'd find some reason to be in those mountains, because there's something about them that we kind of connect with. And it's really hard, but I always feel like when I get in the mountains, the clock stops. And it's just, life is where it is in the mountains. I don't have the problems. I don't have the worries. I don't have it. And it's not that I forget, because I pick up the baggage as I leave, but it's a very odd place. And it's just a place I feel really comfortable in. And I know it's a dangerous place. I know at any given moment it could tell me time's up. But at the same time, I relate to it in some way. And it doesn't hit the same with my sons. So I know it's just specific people it really gets in tune with. And it sounds romantic, but it's just, I feel really comfortable there. And I always feel like I breathe easier. And I don't know if everyone understands the whole idea of the clock stopping. I mean, nothing matters. Because I kind of literally feel when I'm back in there, the days go forever, the nights last forever, and time stands still for me till I leave.
Because you're right there in that moment. That's the only thing you're thinking about.
I can definitely relate.
Yeah.
You know, all that other stuff is just other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Just get lost up there or lost in your own.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think everybody has their favorite places, and mine just happens to be a big mountain range.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge playground that'll never end.
Right.
No one understands my whole, when the television, the different groups will come to me and say, oh, we got this great show in New Mexico. And I had one offered up in Utah, which you guys mentioned Terry Carter early. I told them, call Terry Carter. He's up that way. I'm not interested, because I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to be able to see everything in the Superstitions, much less Arizona. So I'm fine. I traveled when I was younger. When they come to me, I try to say, can't you just fly here? Because there's more I want to do here. Yeah. I really don't want to go to Canada and film. I don't want to go to California and film in the studio. Just fly in here. Let's have a steak dinner and you can film me and then you can go away. Because I like what I'm doing here. So, and Frank always tries to point that out, is why do they want you to do these other shows? Because maybe they find me entertaining, I'm good on camera or something. But my point of doing it is I'm just doing it about something I like. And if they give me subject matter I don't like or I care for or want me to get out of the state, I usually just tell them no. And, people would say, well, that's stupid. You could have opportunities. But I'm thinking, it was kind of a sorry on their part to try to make me into an actor after I was 50 years old.
When is it opportunity, and then when is it selling out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but who cares about selling out? If you offer me enough money, I'll sell out. I got no pride there. There was a company came in with an idea for a show, and I don't know where they're booting it at. And I knew what the show was going to be about. I didn't really care for it much. They had a paranormal theme in the background to it, and I thought it was stupid. But I told them I'll do it for this much money because it would pay for my kids' college. So I had no qualms about it. I said, I will go. I will give you 110%. I will do everything. I could care less because it'll pay for my kids' college. But they tried to come back with a lower number. And I said, no, I told you I'll do it for this amount because I'll do it to pay my kids' college off because that's important. So it's not, to me, there's no such thing as a sellout. I mean, Because I mean, what is that? Everybody writes books, and everybody has a different opinion on stuff, and everybody can do their YouTube videos, and they can hike around. And you know, I've seen there's 50 guys out there that climb up a ravine just by the side of the road, and they put their little helmets on and they run around and they act like they're really doing something, or they talk about the bad spirits in the mountains, and it's all kind of ridiculous. To each their own. You know, is that selling out? Just kind of making a make-believe, like kind of BS kind of video? No, it's entertainment. So it's for entertainment's sake. I've been between Legends, Unexplained, Unexplored, did the Beyond Oak Island bit recently, and a bunch of other companies I've worked for stuff, and which will air here and there, and they'll use you. They'll interview for archive stuff for different shows. I've learned it's all the same. They're there to sell advertising on a television show by entertaining you to keep your butt in the seat to watch.
Right.
And they're going to pay me to say my own honest words that I can on there. So I know they're going to manipulate it. I know they're going to change things. They're going to change the information I've sat down and handed to them. They're going to rewrite. I know what they're going to do. I could not do it, not get a check, and not try to keep it straight as I possibly could. Or I can get involved, hope it turns out as good as I possibly hope, which I thought the Beyond Oak Island episode really came out well, and help steer that and get a paycheck for it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
So because if it's not, it's just like saying when you're the boss and you say, I hate firing people. Well, if it isn't you, they're going to hire someone else to be the boss, and they're still going to fire people.
Right.
So you might as well get over it and just understand that's just part of when you sign up for the job, there's things you do and do not like. And in this case with television, there's stuff I do and do not like. And there's things within my control. And if it seems too stupid or silly, then I can just walk away, you know? And if it seems like I'm interested and I kind of like the people, or in the case of Oak Island, regardless, if you're going to pay me to work with Prometheus Production, the Oak Island guys, William Shatner, all these other companies, I'm back. But I'm going to have to move the phone here in a second. But if you're going to pay me to work with that group to learn how they do things and how they run a hit TV show, I'm going to do it because you're going to pay me to teach me something. And that's going to reflect on me. I'm going to understand the business or certain aspects of the business even better. So, and that's one of the reasons to do it purely for me. If you want the need to know, I want to know why they do television the way they do. And I've learned that. It kind of ruins the experience of watching TV. But I also learned, okay, I understand why they do certain commercials. I know why they do certain things during TV shows. I know why they set things. I know why everything you watch, they're always saying each other's names, because anyone that tunes in at any given moment, they want them to become instantly familiar with the characters. Right. I understand these things because I sat around and talked to people on the set and sat there with the producers, directors, cameramen, everybody, and said, hey, why do we do this? Why is this? Why is that? I just didn't get a paycheck. I tried to get an education a little in it of understanding what it was about.
And that's one of the cool things that happens to us too. When we talk to people like you, we learn a little bit of that ourselves.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be moving us. We're going to move, but you can keep talking. We're moving, so I can find better outlet.
But I mean, when you talk about that stuff, that gives us a little more information. So, like, we know that a lot of times we can't talk about the show because it's still ongoing. We know that a lot of the way the show is produced is done from the cutting room and made to look certain ways. People are made to look certain ways. They gotta have a bad guy, so they make a bad guy, Or
don't make the doofus or whatever.
Right. So we know that, and that's what we learned from you guys, talking to you guys, which is really cool. You pass that information on.
Yeah, and they're probably not always happy. I was worried when we initially started doing it and doing the videos and talking about it. I thought, well, I'm never going to be on TV again, because I'm kind of talking behind the scenes of why things happen the way they do, and trying to educate people to say, the first thing they told me is don't read your hate mail. And I said, why? It doesn't bother me, because the guy that hates it's watching it too. Sometimes the guy that hates it watches it more than anybody else because he just wants to pick on you. But I learned from that, and I wanted to tell people is like, there's nothing personal about it. It's you're going in there and you're just working for somebody else. And you're doing things, and the guy that produces, directs the thing, the guy that films it, doesn't have much of a hand in what's edited and what ends up as the finished product.
Right.
When we did Legends, we started in July, filmed for a week, then we came back for 6 weeks, and then we did probably a total over several weekends, 2 weeks more of pickups. So it's almost 9 weeks of filming.
Right.
9 weeks, 12, 14 hours a day, sun up to sundown and into the nights. And yet you got roughly about 5 hours. So the amount of filming and cameras and stuff going on in multiple locations at times is just mind-boggling. They literally can just create a number of different shows spun out of whatever they film. So no matter what we did, they could just keep redoing it and having us say different things and do different things and walk and do this and that. And then so much of it just disappears. And when I watch the show, I have a hard time explaining to people is I sometimes play off my memory more than what's on the TV show. And then they'll look at me blank, like, what are you talking about? Because my memory is, I remember everything before and after and for hours, and they're remembering a 3-minute segment they saw.
Right. Which didn't impress you at all, but your memories were something that you thought was more important.
Well, we tried, and I tried to do some stuff where I kind of talked out kind of what we did day-to-day filming. And my sons tried to get me to sit down maybe just to do a voiceover of the episodes. And I've never figured out how to give people, because when you film too, sometimes in anticipation of things you're going to do, or like a week or two later, they'll say, we didn't get you at this point saying this. Can you do this? There was some stuff that I did in my bathroom at home. Because they wanted the voiceovers. They didn't like what I said. So they'd say, can you say these lines in your bathroom into your phone and then send them to us? So by the time you film it, the story you're even in was confusing because the first week you're skipping episode 1, 2, and 3 because you're talking about stuff that they literally pick up and say, well, we can put it over here later. You didn't know that at the time. They were just asking you questions. And when they ask you questions, there was towards the end of our filming, they gave me a day off, which meant they sat me in a chair, well, kind of on a bar stool. And I was standing there, able to rest my butt against a bar stool. And for about 8 to 10 hours, I just answered questions. And that was it on camera. They just brought me sodas and food. And I just stood there and they would ask me questions and I would talk. And most of that never made the air. So you can just imagine is like where my head's at. And it's clear now because I've seen the show a bit. But when it first came out, I was just thinking, where's this? Where's that? What happened? You know, because it was like
8 hours worth of work.
How did we magically transport? You know, it's like we had to go through the whole thing of loading up, getting in the truck, driving, and then they had to film us driving back and forth, and they had to film close-ups and do all this fancy stuff. And then they never used it. So I was just kind of blown of like, wow, you know, that was, you know, because you work it out, what they pay you in the end, you're making less than minimum wage. I mean, it just because the hours I remember there was nights we're standing in a hotel courtyard with cactuses behind us lit up doing interviews because the crew wants to get to dinner here soon. And it's like 9 o'clock at night. We're all just standing out there in the cold because it was by that point, late October. And we're all shivering, trying to do these interviews because we got to get them in. And nobody's thinking that because it's a union job, they only pay for the 2 meals. So you might get breakfast and lunch. So you've eaten 2 light meals all day. You've been out there for 16 hours on your feet talking. And that can just drain you in the desert. I mean, Woody was in bad shape sometimes from being out there, you know, because we were going through those extremes too. It was getting cooler at night, but it was still hot during the day. It was over 100 every day.
Yeah. Glamour's not always so glamorous, is it?
I quit the first week. So as soon as I saw how TV was going to be, I left. And then they basically convinced me to come back. I was adamant about not going back. And they talked to me and said literally they couldn't do anything. The whole thing would just be done.
Oh yeah.
And they basically offered enough to me to come back. And it wasn't about money or anything. It was just purely from my point of view. I didn't know how TV was being made. And I apologized for it later because I didn't understand. They wanted someone raw who didn't get it and then use them and make it real. But the problem is when you put that person in there, that person eventually, if you're an independent individual and a rebel, you just walk away and you just pack your bags and you leave. And then they go, where's Wayne? Well, Wayne went home. And well, hold it a second. He can't go home. And Wayne went home. And then they said, are you coming back? And I said, I don't know. I said, it depends on you guys because I don't like this. You know, it was supposed, you told me one thing and now we're doing something and I don't even understand what we're doing anymore. And so then we resolved that where I was allowed to come in for production meetings and sit around and talk. And they didn't listen to me much, but I was there to actually kind of understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't matter if you agree, if you can understand, if they can explain why you have to do it that way, well, you understand at that point. I got a contract. Okay. I understand that. I didn't understand at first. I had no clue. You know, it's like, you said we're doing this and why are we here? Well, don't worry about it. Well, after about 5-6 days of not worrying about it, I was done. You know, I was fed up.
All worried about it.
Well, that's their favorite thing. Don't worry about it. It'll get fixed later. We'll fix that later.
Yeah.
Right.
And, but they, you know,
in the chat room, Terry Curry here wants to know what your thoughts are on Oak Island.
I like Oak Island because I see it as a self-sufficient model. They own the property. There's, you know, they seem to got everybody interested in the treasure on the partnership at this point. So they just keep loading it up with more people. They can kind of rotate through the people a bit. I met Gary Drayton. Gary's a funny guy, really good guy. But I really kind of understood. They created a model for a TV show that self-sustains itself. It has the Canadian government behind it. They have their own museum. The brothers get to make money off the tours, the museum, and everything. They get to do merchandising through that, sustain their treasure operation. So the whole thing is really unique and nice because unlike any other show, it's their property. So they can just wake up in the morning, you know, go over there and they can keep people off the set. You know, I'm sure there's occasional drones or some guy flies a drone over during filming or something. But for the most part, they got their own closed set, like a studio TV show, but it's out in the open. It's a, what do you call, kind of a docudrama to some degree. It's not really reality. It's kind of a documentary film, but it's given its dramatic elements. And
like a
it's just, it's,
never finds treasure.
Oh, go ahead. I was stepping on you there. What?
No, I said it's kind of like a treasure show that never finds treasure.
But that's what they want. I mean, I don't think people understand. Did you really want Oak Island to end?
They've sold the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just sold the hunt. We're
yeah, well, no, they got financed to dig more holes. I would take that. If you said we're going to bring in the backhoe and give you the money and let you promote your vineyard and do that, I mean, everything they've done, I got nothing against it because they are businessmen and they found a way to finance their treasure hunting operation and other business interests. And it's worked for all these other companies that are coming in there that do all this other specialized stuff that nobody has heard of. And, you know, Gary Drayton gets to leave, you know, Australia and England and come to the United States and spend time up in Canada and leave again. But it works perfectly for them as a model. It's a good family TV show. There's no swearing. There's nothing politically incorrect or anything on that show. It's done Disney faction. It's done so well. And especially Prometheus originally was doing stuff like the Girls Gone Wild stuff originally in Playboy and that stuff. That's where their beginnings were. And now you look, they got that show, and then they got, what is the other ones? Ancient Aliens, Unexplained with William Shatner. They've done a really nice job of creating shows. And I'm not going to say that don't find anything, but don't really give you much, but are entertaining. And they have a nice entertaining cast. They know how to rotate it, how to edit it, how to make it so even if you don't like it, generally, if you see it, you stop and start watching.
Right.
Because it's just entertaining to watch.
Oh yeah, you're getting the thrill of the hunt, is what they're showing you. That's what they're giving you, the thrill of the hunt. And they've also branched out into other hunts, other treasures.
Well, that was the Beyond Oak Island, and they approached me with that a year ago, and we talked, and I did the one episode with them. And that was, they wanted to kind of, they have a problem of sustaining other shows around it because it does about 3 million people. And then the next show that follows it drops like 1.5 million people.
Wow.
Just people aren't interested. But, and again, face it, the Lagina brothers don't have to get dirty most of the time. That is the most awesome, from my point of view, being the guy on the end of the rope in the hole, getting bounced around and wondering if the guys, you know, we have a funny video sometime I'll have to post where Frank wandered off looking for Trevor, and I'm down this hole, and I'm just wondering where they went. I'm filming myself, realizing everybody's gone, and I'm stuck. The Lagina brothers don't get into those situations because obviously History Channel is not going to let that happen.
Right.
And they kind of did that with me. They got kind of worried about some stuff, but it's kind of funny is because I look at it and I go, damn, I wish I had that show. I mean, I'm envious because it's not just the money and stuff. It'd be cool to be able to bring in guys and hire people to do the dirty work because I'm the guy that has to go do the dirty work usually. And yeah, I actually am pretty jealous of that. So,
well, I have a few questions here. Let me see if I can throw some of these out here to you.
okay. Sorry about the heavy bag here.
Our buddy David Villa.
No worries.
Our buddy David Villa wants to know, do you take guided groups out to the mountains?
No, because I have a very, I have a lot of patience, but my children wore a lot of it thin over, you know, the last 20 years. And I get out with people and I'm very respectful. Now I'm going to say I'm very respectful. I'll listen to your treasure hunting story. If I disagree, I'll try to set you right. I'm not going to be stubborn about it or argue with you. I always will listen to people. I will hear them out. I won't tell them they're blatantly wrong or stupid or anything. But I'm not really a good person with tenderfeet out in the mountains. And I kind of have that kind of old rough kind of attitude of, you know, well, you're not dead yet, so get up, back up, and let's get going. And that doesn't work in today's society. People like, you know, people want safe. They want,
right.
So I tend, there's people I go in the mountains with, and it's people I know because of two things. One, the physicality, and those different people, there's different trips I make. If I'm going way back in the backcountry, Frank and Woody don't go with me. That's my sons or someone else, my buddy Randy Wright. We do that stuff because it's very physically demanding. On the other side, there's also a psychological aspect with some people is like I've learned in the past, some people, it just doesn't work for them. And you wouldn't believe there's been a few times I've come out of the mountains with someone that was a good friend that I couldn't stand by the time I got out of the mountains. I literally was just done with them.
I know that feeling. I've had that happen.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, so I've learned, you know, we have the Rendezvous every October, November, and we are out there for 3 days. I'll listen to everybody. We'll take a hike. We try to do something physical activity, show people and people learn, and we do all that stuff. But I've never really led the hikes on that. Jack Carlson, who does the hiking guides, done it. Other people will take the lead on the hikes because I might be on your hike and you might look around and realize a couple of us just broke off and disappeared because I'll ghost it because I'll say, okay, we're about done. I want to go check this out, but I can't take these people with me because I can't, and I don't mean it mean in any way. I don't want to babysit.
Right.
You can't pay me to babysit.
I've noticed in your videos you've mentioned the Rendezvous a few times. What is that?
About 16, 17 years ago, a bunch of guys were sitting around talking and they had some stories and they wanted to physically go out and kind of follow up on the stories. So the idea was, since they all had difference of opinions on something on a site, let's go camping together and do it. And they did it and they cooked and they had a good time. And there's about a dozen. And then the next year we set up the Don's Camp, which is in the wilderness area, and said, let's meet there from now on. And the Quarter Circle U Ranch and the Superstition Trail system's there, so we can kind of go on a hike, do stuff. Then people who haven't been out can learn about the history, talk to the authors, the historians. we're kind of all there on equal footing. And then we have guest lectures and stuff like that on Saturday nights. So we just kind of evolved it from that. And the idea was every Dutch hunter is invited. There's nobody that's ever turned away. Leave your baggage at the gate, come on in, just be friendly, share food, do whatever, hang out, have a good time. And basically the only rule is just to enjoy yourself and be respectful and leave. And then, you know, pick up your feud on the way out. And it was about kind of celebrating the mountains and the history and sharing. If you had questions about something you were looking for, you'd be able to get a hold of everybody in person instead of emailing and phone calls. Right. And it was a great way to break the ice with new people coming in. And we've had people from all over the world. And Terry Carter was out one year and hung out with us and went out with us, and we had a blast. But it was just something kind of to do. We figured, it won't last 3 or 4 years because everybody argues too much in treasure hunting. And 16, 17 years later, we're still doing it. Everybody's still getting along. This year, we had another successful one. Even with COVID, we still had close to 100 people come out. And we had a big amphitheater, and we spread everybody out, and we managed to social distance. And instead of sharing food for a change, and, you know, where we tried to cook for everybody else who didn't have food, we just said, bring your own food, because we can't do that this year. And everybody camped, and we had a great time, and it continues to roll on. So we have that event, and then coming up the Ides of March, we have the Treasure Hunter of the Year Award, where every year it's usually superstition related, but I believe a number of people outside the superstitions have got the award, and it's just basically.
Terry Carter win that last year or the year before?
No, Salvador gave Terry a plaque because Salvador likes to hand out plaques.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What it was, Salvador Degrazia started it, and there's this whole weird kind of thing about it. I'm not sure about it. I'm trying to get it all down. You do the awards for 12 years, and then you pass it to another person. And then they do it for 12 years, and then you pass another person. So myself and Bob Schuss have been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. We're on the 3rd set of 12. And Salvador would hand a plaque, and you get a silver or gold ring and a number of things. And then Salvador was out of it for about a dozen years. And then for some reason, when me and Bob are doing it every year, Salvador keeps coming up with his own version. He has what I think Terry got, and Terry could correct me on this.
Oh, Terry is in the chat room right now as we speak.
It's the Emerald. It's the Emerald Award plaque, or the Emerald Achiever thing, or something like that. It's the Emerald something, I think. So yeah, it's Salvador's Emerald thing. He's done a few of those, and we never know what's going to happen. He just shows up with a plaque. And yeah, the one year, you could tell, we filmed it and we put it out there, and you could tell we were kind of like, Salvador, you don't hand out the plaques no more. And he came up with his own separate award now, so, which is fine. But yeah, Terry, I think, was the first recipient of the Royal Emerald, whatever it's called. I don't really know what it is.
Uh-oh. He froze on us.
Well, Terry said it was a lot of fun and a lot of great people were there. So, wonder if his phone died.
I don't know. He said he was having problems with his phone.
Yeah. Here, I'll unpin you guys for now until he pops back, or so everyone can see y'all. Yeah.
Well, no, Evergreen Prospectors we weren't, but we can.
What do you ask?
You want to know if we were talking about
him? Why, were your ears burning? Must have been someone else. Yeah, but we can. You've heard of that Evergreen Prospectors guy, right?
Tell me the good stuff.
Apparently, he's a prospector in Washington. So.
Well, that's a great question. Does anybody know if they're doing the rock shows in Arizona this year?
That is a good question. It's hard telling.
Do we know if that's an outdoor or indoor event? Because I think that might really dictate.
Well, I know from what I understand, they canceled all the gold shows for GPAA this year, which sucks.
You know,
But
hopefully, yeah, hopefully next year. Hope 2021, guys. We're close.
January Quartzsite and Tucson. Thank you, Jason. He is in fine Southwest Washington gold. Well, last time I was out there, I was playing in Southwest Washington. Wayne's back.
He's back. All right.
You got to turn your mic back on.
That got mute button,
There you
I
go.
swear.
There I am.
Thomas Folks, what's up, buddy? He says no GPA gold shows this for 2021 either. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that bites. Lots
Yeah,
of
Terry,
fun.
that's funny you said that. Yeah, we did go on a bit of a lull there. It's when you get hit left field. You're like, oh, what are we gonna talk about now?
Well, what I you call it the curse of the superstitions, because the battery wouldn't charge, and then the Wi-Fi just decided. I was standing here talking, and then realized there was no screen.
Yeah.
I kept talking though. I was still talking. It was a black screen. I was still talking.
Yeah.
We were still listening. We didn't hear nothing, but we were listening.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, so I have no idea where I was, because then I kind of just stood there and realized, oh crap! And then I had to yell, "Is the Wi-Fi down?" Yeah, the Wi-Fi's down.
We
Set it
were
back up.
talking about the awards and Terry Carter.
Oh yeah,
And
so,
Terry Carter said it was a lot of fun and a lot of great people there.
oh, it's it's a who's who of treasure hunting and lost Dutchman mine searchers, and people go and have been looking for the mine for 40, 50, 60, 70 years.
So is it open? Is it open to the public, or is it by invitation, or
I think we lost him again.
we lost him again?
Yep.
Yeah.
I knew I should have got that question in quicker.
Well, you know, stuff happens.
Right.
It is what it is.
I was never able to figure out how to call into your guys' show with my cell phone. I could never figure it out.
Huh.
I just could not make it work. So I was like, okay. And I used to say, well, I won't use my laptop because it's so ancient, but I've had no problems with it.
Now am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took it off Wi-Fi. So
All
I
right,
figured
let me
that's-
see if I can get these questions in. What was that question? I forgot already. Shit. Oh yeah. Your event, your rendezvous, is that open to the public, or is
Yeah,
that
the rendezvous is everybody's welcome. Just behave yourself, because everybody has a gun, so you got to behave yourself.
okay? So when does that happen?
We'll announce that during the summer, which weekend. It's usually the weekend before Halloween or after,
All right.
depending how the weekends work out. This year was just before Halloween. We try to keep it as much as possible around the 25th of October,
Right.
because that's when Walt's died. So we kind of try to use that. And it's also kind of a kickoff to the hiking season, because if you did it any later, everybody'd be in the mountains.
So all right. So people in our chat room wanted to be in touch or get information. Where would they need to find
Go
you
to
at?
Facebook, Dutch Hunter Rendezvous.
All right, there you
So
go.
if you look, it'll be posted on the Legend Superstition Mountains
Okay.
Facebook site, which has our logo on it.
All right.
There's several different ones, but ours has our logo and it has all our videos and stuff. Then there's a Dutch Hunter Rendezvous site, and then usually, my Facebook page off and on, it's kind of a lot of traffic. You can find it there, and it kind of spreads from there. But the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous has all that information when it's coming about, and that should be coming out. We'll have the date probably scheduled official sometime early in the summer.
Cool.
So
Working on the link.
One of mine has asked us a couple of times. He's trying to figure out the difference between daytime heat and how cold it gets at night. He says 100 a day, how cold at night?
well, right now we're probably, let's say right now we could get up in the 70s or 80s, and in the nights it could get down in the 30s.
Right.
During the summertime in the mountains, it depends where you are in the mountains. In the city, because the asphalt and stuff and the concrete, it can really mess with you because it doesn't get below much 85 or 90. In the outlying desert areas, it can get down in the 60s and 70s. So you could have a 40, 50, 60 different degree difference. And especially during monsoon, which we talked about right at the beginning, you hit the monsoon period, it could be 115 degrees out, and then the monsoon winds and everything comes in, hits the rocks, some smattering of rain, and then the breezes come through. It'll drop down into the 60s. And then next thing you know is everything will come back up again. And, you know,
that's a serious thing. About 40 to 50 degree difference between the daytime temperature and nighttime. And that happened as soon as the sun went down. It was like, gone. The heat was gone.
And I think part of it is the dryness.
Yeah.
Because dry cold, you know, I've been up north in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt in the snow. And yeah, you don't want to stand out in it all day, but it's not that bad. But if you get out in a dry, cold day with the wind whipping, it's a lot colder than it is with snow at the same temperature. So, and you know, once it gets down below 20, it's just cold no matter what, because the air hitting your lungs, you know, it's just, then you're just in a whole different realm. So, but you know, the mountains and it's hypothermia, you know, you got the heat stroke and all that stuff to play with. People don't even realize it's a nice day, 55 degrees, you're back in the mountains. It's partly overcast, but you can still get heat stroke and sunstroke from a day like that.
Right.
And because of the dryness of the weather, you're drying out, you know, you can drink plenty of water and your body still doesn't adapt to it. So people are always under that uncommon thing of, well, I got plenty of water and I'm drinking a sip of water, but it's how your body regulates the water. There's plenty of times I go in the mountains all day and I don't even drink a quart of water because it's just my body's kind of set to the heat, but that doesn't work for everybody. So different people are going to be, and if you're going to hike in the summer heat, it's best to do it in increments and get used and understand what your body needs and understand that usually by the time you realize I'm kind of feeling dizzy, I got a little bit of a headache, it's too late now. You've gone too far. Now you need to find a shady spot, good luck in the desert, and water, and you need time to cool down and get your body temperature settled.
Yep. Got another question here. Have you ever gone out looking for the Degrazia paintings?
The Degrazia paintings, yes. We think we were right on top of those. We did a bunch of videos on them. We ended up with 3 different maps that had kind of generated out of that. We got a lot of tips and clues, but we actually, for the first time, Frank and I spent a lot of time messing with those maps, and we actually found a lot of the places that were physically on the maps. And we deciphered part of them where other people kept telling us their solutions. We figured out what some of the encryptions were, and we were down to a certain area before Fish Creek was closed. Now, we don't know if we're going to find them, if someone else found them and didn't say anything or anything like that. But we knew we were in the general vicinity, and we were just trying to figure out if the maps were going to be, that was another problem we were having, if the maps were going to be specific or very general. And then there's arguments that sometimes they're in metal pipes, sometimes they're in plastic pipe, and we weren't sure if metal detecting what it would take to find them.
Okay, so what are the Degrazia paintings?
Ted Degrazia was a very, very famous painter here in Arizona.
Okay.
He was an Arizona guy. You've probably seen the paintings. The kids don't have any eyes on them. They're on the Christmas cards from Arizona, that kind of stuff. If you saw a Degrazia, you'd say, oh, I've seen that stuff.
Okay.
In the 70s, there came a time where he found out, because he didn't really sell a lot of his stuff. He kept most of it and put it in his own galleries and stuff. And he found out if he died, his family would go broke because the valuation of his paintings, the family would lose everything, having to pay the income tax on the valuation of his estate. So he went out to an area called Angel Springs. He burned a bunch of paintings publicly. And I knew a guy that actually had one of the burnt paintings. He salvaged part of it. He burned a bunch of paintings in protest. And then another part of it he decided to do was he started hiding things in the mountains. Now he did ceramics, he did bronzes, he did paintings, and he would take and stash stuff. And this was one of the stories that Bob Ward generated, where Ted said there was a cave, he put some in. He did a short film about it. He did actually a fictional film about what he did to try to give people clues. No one's figured that one out. There's supposedly a cave somewhere where there's a bunch of 100 paintings stuck. And then another one with Bob Ward, they put them in metal tubes, and there's like 3 to 6 in each tube, and then they buried them. And then he drew a map, had Bob Ward draw a map, and then said, you can sell that to my wife, give it to my wife, or sell it, or do whatever you want with it. And Bob Ward didn't like the paintings. He said he always didn't care for Ted's artwork. So he released it in a book called Ripples of Lost Echoes. And people ever since have been trying to find these because they buried them. And, you know, the valuation, to me personally, I'm a Degrazia fan. I have some of his artwork in my own home. So I would like to find them just personally to have those, because they're actual, real, authentic Degrazias. They could be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000, even $50,000 a piece. And there's 18 of them that were put in these metal cylinders and buried. And we showed one of the maps. There's a puzzle map where you have to take it apart and put it together and orient it. There was another map he put in his book, and then we found a third map. There was a third map that was included with the book initially, which was kind of a general location map. And we took all those, went out, and like I said, part of it was just one day driving down the road, and we were on something unrelated. We were metal detecting on a site where Frank had found a melted silver dollar before. So we were just metal detecting to see if he could find anything else. And he said, stop the truck. And we got out and realized one of the clues that was on the maps, we'd been driving by it constantly. And it was pure. It was like, wow, how did we miss that? But it was right there, clear and apparent. And it fit right with where we've been searching, where we thought they might have been. Because we went by a different thing. Rather than look at the maps, we thought, two guys that like to drink whiskey and beer, how far from the road would they park? And where would they bury this stuff? Now, Ted Degrazia didn't like to do a lot of physical labor sometimes, and he was getting up in the years, and Bob Ward was known to have a really bad back. And they both were known to drink all the time. So we came up with certain solutions, key solutions of where do drunk guys bury shit. And that's what
the first step would be getting drunk like them, right?
We thought about that, but then, you know, it was easier just to say. And then we started finding things like, I found a cigarette lighter. We found an old whiskey bottle, and we kind of knew we might be in the area, but there's a lot of people that drink.
Yeah.
But we realized the area, everything oriented to it. And we realized everybody else was searching elsewhere. And that's always a good sign when nobody's found anything and they've been searching everywhere but where you're at. So we started kind of kicking things over. And I think one of the holes, it was in the video, we were digging around one hole where someone dug, and we found an old buffalo nickel. And there was no paintings there, but we knew we were in some general area where someone had been digging around. And it was a spot where we figured they would have parked the truck. So we kind of did that conclusion, and then went back to the maps and said, okay. And then I think one of the other things we found was Bob Ward had a love of shooting guns. He just liked to shoot stuff. And where his cabin was, all the cactuses are filled with holes. Well, then we were going up this one area, and we found this cactus is just shredded. And we thought, you know what, that's just like a Bob Ward sign of someplace he would have been, just for no apparent reason other than just he was bored. And so we kind of put that together, and then we started looking at the things. And, you know, unlike people that'll sit down and try to figure something out, we just let it come to us. And it was kind of funny because we'd sit there and there was some things that we just couldn't orient. And then one day you're just randomly looking at it and you just suddenly go, oh, I get it now. It was almost, he made it complicated in some spots, but so simple in others, just to make you not be able to think it through. Because you'd be taxing your brain going, okay, I got this finally. So what did he mean by this? And it was so simple, it was so apparent, but you would never figure it out. And then it just took me just being overly tired looking at it one day and then say, hold on a second. And then I suddenly, oh, I get it now. You know, he was being funny, you know, which Bob Ward was very intelligent. When he was drunk, he was still intelligent, but he also had a sense of humor. And I thought that was something then we started to apply too, is like, okay, he has this sense of humor of, even though he wanted someone to find the maps or the paintings before he died. And he made the second map because he was frustrated that nobody found the paintings. Wow. So he said, here's another map. Go figure this one out.
Here's an easier one.
But one of the problems is this man would write codes and develop codes, and he did some fantastic stuff. He could sketch like no one's business. So one of the problems is when you're dealing with someone with that intelligence level, sometimes their inside jokes and stuff are beyond the rest of us because you don't personally know the guy and you don't understand him at all.
Nugget Brain Peterson here says he met Bob Ward back in the 80s, and the clue he gave him was to buy one of his books.
Yep. Oh, hey, that's not bad.
He did autograph it for him. So, yeah, I guess he did have a sense of humor, huh?
Yeah, and, you know, he was known as a guy that tolerated no BS, and, you know, he is one of those guys that people, you would say a third of the people think he's a joke. Third of them just don't think much of him. And then the third also realized he covered every inch of the mountains on foot. And he dug holes everywhere. And there's some things that happen, shootings and things attached to him. And so when you put it all together, you realize he was a serious amount of piece of business. Salvador Degrazia, who we spoke of, that Terry got the award from, he basically sat the one time, and maybe someday I'll get Salvador to tell about that story. But Bob was going to kill him. And Salvador knew it. He was sitting in a chair and Bob was explaining he was going to kill him because he thought Salvador had told too many people too many secrets. And, you know, there's one place we know there's a shaft that's partially buried. And one of the things about it was his ex-wife, after he died, said that place, if anybody ever digs it out, there's a lot of secrets buried in there. So there could be bodies, guns, who knows what. So you're dealing with someone that. I watched
one of your videos about this guy then.
Yeah, he was, you know, it's easy sometimes to stand away and read the book and listen to the stories some people personally have of him. And then I got into some of the manuscripts he wrote. He wrote newspaper articles and a number of other things, and he wrote the one book. And when you see the depth of what there's one manuscript he wrote that's how to set traps to get live game, wilderness survival, codes, how to encrypt things. I mean, it just goes beyond how to weave baskets. And he did sketches with them. And his ability to mechanically draw, artistically draw, and then combine that with his ability to give you step-by-step instructions. I think one of the instructions he gives is how to build a heliograph, a working heliograph for the mountains. And you're sitting back going, there is a lot of genius to this. This isn't just some raving lunatic. He didn't have the resources of the internet just to pull off in that cabin. He's just writing this stuff out off the top of his head. So he was a serious piece of business. And I think because of some of the outrageous stuff he did, it kind of like takes away from the seriousness of what he might have known or accomplished in the mountains. So that's one of the reasons we gave him time, because we thought he kind of his reputation gets smeared a bit, and probably rightly so, from some of his own actions. But at the same time, you have to recognize someone for who they were. And he started what was called the Mountain Man's Rendezvous back in the 70s and 80s. And he was good friends with Tom Columborn, and they would meet out. And the Rendezvous kind of like worked off of that, you know. And some of the guys that originally attended those Mountain Man rendezvous with Bob Ward are the guys that regularly attend our rendezvous. So even though we didn't purposely do that, it kind of has an attachment to that. And I've always felt an attachment because I think he was a throwback individual. But anyone that gets a hold of me or Terry or Salvador, we got boxes of his books. And I'll always be more than happy just to hand someone one of those books. I won't mail them out and stuff, but if you run into me and I got a copy, I will always I got 2 boxes sitting here. And I like to give them out because I think it's a great read, and it gives you tons of, and while he wasn't always the best author at consolidating his material properly, it's entertaining, and it gives you a dozen different, at least 2 dozen different treasure hunting stories to run off on in the Superstitions. So, he didn't put it together probably as well as he would have when he was healthier and younger, but it's still such a good book because he physically was there. And a lot of these things that we went through the book and looked for were really there. So he wasn't BSing everybody. He was actually uncovering stuff, and he just would find it and say, okay, well, I don't care, and just leave it for someone else.
That's what I like about Terry Carter's videos too. interviews of these guys telling their stories.
I wish we could get Terry to sit down and talk more, because Terry always wants to talk to everybody else and tell their stories. Terry's got good stories. His own story.
Yeah, he does.
And he doesn't want to get on camera and do them. And he's got, I think he has a great speaking voice. I think he's entertaining. And we got him to speak at the Rendezvous one time for a while. But it's hard to get Terry to get on his personal side of what he searches for. But yeah, he tells a great story. And but it's hard to get him to want to do it, because he's definitely has zero ego about it. He's so modest. It's like, no, I just like to interview people.
We'll have to get him on again, Jesse. Hint, hint,
Yeah.
Terry. Hint, hint.
Hey, Terry, come on, you like coming on our show.
Oh no, everybody likes Terry, man. That's the one thing he has going for him. Everybody likes Terry Carter.
Oh yeah.
You've made it clear that you're really fond of your particular area, but do you have any other treasure stories you want to hunt down anywhere else? Do you have any bucket list areas to go to?
I get a lot. People send me things. There's a few things I go looking for, or there's things I see and then I just want to know. Of course, because there's a lot of mountain ranges. I spent a lot of time up in the Weaver Mountains by Yarnell and stuff, searching up there. There was some old gold mines up there. Everybody, ever since Gold Rush hit, everybody's kind of ate those claims up and made them into some sort of mini Gold Rush kind of camp, which sucks, because you used to be able to just go up there and explore and dig around and find some cool relics and stuff. And I always was a huge fan of it. One time of taking people out to ruins and places like that when they visit, just to show them what it was like. And that stuff disappears because everybody suddenly becomes their personal territory. There was one about a safe that went down the river from, I think it was Walker, and it went down the Hassayampa River. I've kind of always been interested in that. There's some old claims. There's stuff on historical value I'll look for. There was, I'm trying to remember, Albert Schaefer's cabin, where I found his grave and his partner's grave on a hill in his old cabin, and their mining works. And I just missed their open pit mine by about 3 weeks, because the rancher was worried his grandchildren would fall in it. He bulldozed it just before I found it finally. And we shared information, and I got to get a lot of real information and connect with him about a real story behind what he didn't know, who the guys on the hill that had the tombstones were, and he didn't know who lived in the cabin and all this other stuff. And I knew the history, I just didn't know the location. So we were able to work that out, which is kind of cool into itself. It's the treasure hunting thing. Again, if you tell me something interesting in the mountains, I'll go check it out. It's not always about the treasure. I like going, and I've always said this, I may not sometimes believe the stories people I will say are friends will tell me, but I always go dig for them. I don't have a problem with digging and hanging out with them and kind of experiencing how they go about things. And, I hope they're successful. I hope I'm wrong, but I kind of enjoy that side of things too. Because it's always interesting to me seeing the other side of it. Frank and I, and Woody gets healthy again and gets down here with us. We like looking for gold. We like finding prospects and find some gold. And Frank and Woody obviously did really well on that one cleanup and that one wash and back in Hewitt Canyon, because they pulled probably somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 of gold. I think Frank said at one point he believes they might have got 4 to 6 ounces out of there in one single day, and it was all good nuggets. And you like those kind of things too, because it's not necessarily a treasure hunt, but you're working an area where you hope from it you find something. The relics can just be the same too, as finding something. My old partner Randy Wright and I were up in Bluff Springs Mountain, and we found a broken knife that had to belong to Barry Storm or Herman Petrash, someone back in the early 1900s who was searching, and part of their gear. And finding stuff like that was really cool, because the history in the area and who we knew was in the area, and while we couldn't definitively tie it to one person, we knew it had to be one of these people who was in that specific area searching. And it's very cool finding that stuff. And some of the markings, there's in Barks Draw, there's a Peralta stone, and it's well known. It says the name Peralta on it, R. Peralta. or P Peralta. I think it's R Peralta. And it's down there, and across from it in the bushes, there's an old stone that has a group of cavalry had come through, and they scratched their names into that stone. And that stuff's very cool to find because it's kind of a treasure unto itself. That someone over 100 years ago, some guys were sitting around having lunch, you know, chasing the Apaches through the mountains, and they sat down and decided to scratch their names into a rock. And you locate something like that. So that stuff's cool too. So I don't know, when people say treasures, I can find a bunch of old rope and an old Spanish pack saddle in a cave, and I think that's a treasure.
I think
'Cause it's just
everybody
so cool.
here, yeah, we could all agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's to me the level of it's not always like, you know, you come home and you're all scratched up and you're all beat up, but I'm like, hey, look at the whiskey bottle I found.
Yeah.
You know, this is like from the 30s, and you know, it seems kind of lame in the general sense of purpose of what I spent in gas, but I'm still think it's very, very cool because definitely when you're dealing with something specific like the superstitions and that's your history. I mean, with the Historical Society and the museum and the stuff I do, one of the things that's cool is you can usually put names to certain things. And that makes it even cooler because you can sit there and say, I know who drank out of this bottle. I know who was here, you know, and so I got boxes of that kind of stuff, which is very cool to me. And then, you know, you find these old Prince Albert tins and stuff with these old claim papers. And, you know, the guys have been long, long gone, but you know, it's so cool to find those and see the name and then look it up because Maricopa County, Pinal's not as great, but Maricopa County, the state of Arizona is awesome about putting out public records. And you can find through our own public record system, everybody that filed anything anywhere. And it's so cool because you can put people with things, and then with ancestry, you can put faces literally with these stories. And that makes it so cool because then next time you go out, you kind of have a different respect for everything going on because you have a person to attach to something.
Yeah, it's like you're almost with that person for just a moment, you know, you're almost in that moment of history for just a brief second, you know, but it is quite a thrill.
Yeah, we've had that thing where several of us have talked when we're up in the mountains in certain areas. You almost feel like you wonder if the ghosts of all these guys are just some wisp in the wind following along with you, laughing at you probably. But
I would hope so, yeah. I would hope that would be the case.
And we did a video on the Chasing Legends series about when I was at the Lost Dutchman store, and it's cool. We put the photograph up. I was just messing around, and I put a camera up, and I set it on auto to take some pictures because I realized I've been taking pictures all day, but there wasn't a single picture that I was in. So I figured I'd get a picture of myself, and I stepped behind the bar there. And then I said, okay, the bar is open, ready for drinks, and kind of went to raise my hand like I was having a drink. And there's this white, fuzzy picture of something beside me. Looks like it's wearing a cowboy hat with its arm crooked up like it's taking a drink.
Wow.
And I'm not a ghost guy, but I've never, over the last 15 years, I've went out there the same time of year, kind of the same time of day, tried to replicate the picture. I've never been able to get the picture to look like that, anything like that again. So if some old cowboy was wisping through there and just decided to pop in and just, you know, kind of say hello or got the joke I was telling, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we posted that because even though I'm not a paranormal guy, I got to admit that one's confused me till the end of time because I didn't even see it. I thought my picture was ruined. And I thought, oh man, great. The picture looks like crap. And then people called me and said, do you realize that's a guy in a cowboy drink? Wow. And I said, really? And then I looked at it and then I said, oh my crap, I didn't realize that. I just thought it was a ruined pic. You know, I glanced at it, said the picture didn't come out well, and I just tossed it aside.
Do you have, can we go see that picture anywhere? Can we go?
Yeah, it's on the Chasing Legends stuff. And I think it's Spirit in the Superstitions or something. And you'll see the picture. I think the thumbnail is the picture of me standing there. There's graffiti on the wall behind me, and you'll see me standing there. But yeah, that was probably sometime this fall we posted that because I put it out on forums before, and I wanted to put it out again to people because I usually kind of slag off the whole paranormal ghost hunting groups, and I give them a real hard time. But I wanted to pay them back a little something. Here's something I can't explain because I want to admit there's times I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I'm not spooked by it. I'll sleep anywhere. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I couldn't explain that to this day. Like I said, I used a lot of film up trying to replicate it and have never been able to get it to come out anything like that. Not even close. You know, not even to say, oh, that could have been what it was. it was early in the morning. The way I've done everything, and it is what it is. I have to live with it. That I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on not being too keen on the paranormal. I want to believe. I want my photo with the ghost, to happen to me. To have that experience. So I think it's cool that you can admit, it's something you can't explain that's happened to you, even though that's not something that you really lean towards. The fact that you can admit, I can't explain it, is exciting all on its own.
Oh, yeah, and there's little things that happen, and I just kind of shrug them off, and I don't really, because my sense and my term, and people always have to get used to the fact I say paranormal was a great way to market the word occult, to sell things, because occult just had a bad satanic sound to it. So they made it paranormal because it's easier to sell merchandise.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what it is when you look at all the ghost shows and stuff, and then you have to buy your meters and all this. And then, we even did one where I talked at the San Carlos Hotel ghost hunt I went on, where people talk. Everybody froze. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
We hear
we
you.
can hear you, yeah.
Okay, she froze for a second. But everybody starts acting like, well, if you don't believe, they're not going to show up.
Oh, I get
what kind of game is that? You know,
right.
It's like, well, you have to have this meter to do this. Well, I work for the utility company, and I understand about electricity and what you're doing with these meters. And that necessarily, I see dowsing rods work. I can find sprinkler pipes and electrical lines with dowsing rods. I don't fully understand it, but it works. And you'll find a lot of guys that locate carry some in their truck. They're not supposed to use them, but they do work at times. So I don't, I don't want to always dispel everything, but when the guy sits there and holds the dowsing rod over a piece of gold and says, look, it's telling me the gold's here. Well, yeah, you're holding the gold there and you're holding the other rod. I mean, sure, it's pretty easy to make it spin. So, but there are things I don't quite understand, but I don't say, oh, it's paranormal, because I don't understand if there's a physical reason for why that works. There could be a very rational physical reason idea why that works the way in principle that it does. Right. So I'm willing to say, yeah, there was some weird thing that showed up in my photo, and people can look at it and they can judge it for themselves, and never came across it again. So he was passing through, had a drink with me and moved on.
Yep. So our friend Nugget Brain Peterson says, Wayne, contact Wayne on Facebook. His name is also Wayne, because he'd like to talk to you about the Degrazia paintings and a few others I know, the Stratton area like the back of my hand. He is in Arizona also. That's Wayne Nugget Brain Peterson.
Wayne's in Southwest Colorado, Durango.
Oh, is he?
He's spent a lot of time.
I think I've seen him comment on some stuff before on posts.
He's the president of WATS, Worldwide Association of Treasure Seekers.
Yeah.
Terry knows who he is.
You should never join a club that'll accept you.
That's right. Do what I do.
I prefer.
I make up my own club.
Well, I'll go hang with the GPA and all these groups, and I'll go out and sign pictures and sit there at the booth and do everything else, but I won't join them because that would ruin everything. So I kind of like, Frank was a part of that, and Woody definitely is a big part of that. But I just tell them I don't want, if they're going to accept me, I don't want to be a part of it. Because that's just, they're not doing a very good vetting job on anybody.
And Ted Carp says he wants to know if it's true that there are old cities in the Grand Canyon.
There are ruins. It's a lot of Hohokam ruins on Rogers Canyon, cliff dwellings, that type of stuff in a number of areas and places I won't tell you where they're exactly at. Not cities. There's no UFOs. I've never seen Bigfoot. I haven't seen the Banshee. There's a story about a Banshee over by Bluff Springs. Never seen any of that kind of stuff. Never seen a UFO. No alien base that I know of.
No golden Egyptian. No
Egyptian stuff. No portals. But there's some unusual things that go back in time. But nothing that, the whole conspiracy theory, the ancient alien type thing, that stuff, nothing like that I've ever run across,
I think you were just curious about the old ancient ruins, the old cities that used to be down there.
Yeah, I came across one when we were first started filming the pilot. We were hiking across a Barkley Basin, and I ran across a pit house, and it was some ruins, an old Salado Hohokam ruin area. We found stone tools and stuff, and that was when we first started filming, and they never used it, but we found that site by filming, because when you're filming, you're just wandering off in different directions, trying to do stuff, get good background film.
Right.
And we were just doing random stuff, and I was wandering off, and they had a camera guy and an audio guy with me, and we were just walking around doing B-roll. And then I suddenly realized I was seeing part of a structure that had been exposed. And then once you see one, you start seeing everything else. And nobody had known it existed. So Jack Carlson said he named it, and I don't know if when he revises his book, if he'll ever place it in it, because you don't want anybody stealing the stuff. But it was named Wayne's Ruins because nobody knew it existed, but it was one of those things in plain view. It's just you had to be at the right angle, I guess, walk in the right direction. And then just suddenly, oh wow, that's a rock wall partially buried in the ground.
Yeah.
And then I walked up and realized it was the remains of a pit house. And then the next thing I looked at my feet, there was a stone axe. And I was like, this is really cool. And I don't know if History Channel just didn't find a place or have a reason to put it in there, but I was hoping they'd put it in, because to me, the whole entire time we filmed the show, there was interesting stuff, but that was one of the coolest things, because I've never found a ruin like that, on my own. I usually look them up and find out someone else found it before I did. They knew about it. That was the first time I found something that no one had a clue existed. So I was proud of it, and I didn't get credit.
Bummer.
I need to acknowledge someone's super chat real quick. Richard Davis, thank you very much for the super chat.
That's a nuclear blast.
Super chat.
What else do we have in there? Oh, you went through them already.
Yeah, they're all
Oh, and Terry Carter said Terry doesn't know how to tell them. I figured that's stories.
Yeah.
Now, Terry, you've been on a couple of times and you've done awesome, my friend.
Terry Carter, I will never say anything bad about you, but you are lying right now, and you are. I will be calling you or texting you about that. You can't say you're busy or you're working or something. I will get you for that, because yes, you can tell a hell of a story, buddy.
You bet.
Yeah, we know better also, Wayne. We know better also.
Quit playing that modesty up so much.
Actually, I need to talk you into a date here in March or April.
You talking to me or Terry?
Or April or March, Terry. If you're still in here, Terry.
So, Wayne, what are some of your pet peeves from treasure hunting, or people you're with? What are some big pet peeves you have?
Pet peeves with treasure hunters?
Yeah.
I hate people that leave trash.
Oh.
Take out your trash.
Yeah.
I mean,
us too.
People have a tendency to leave just garbage, wrappers, cans, stuff like that. I hate that because it makes us all look bad. And once you leave one piece of trash, the next guy thinks he can leave his trash, and then it just suddenly starts to accumulate. I hate
we
that.
We saw evidence of that a couple of weekends ago.
I hate people that.
Oh yeah.
If you want to see petroglyphs on rocks, take a little bit of your water and splash it on it. Quit trying to chalk draw it and ruin them and scrape on them and mess up petroglyphs and stuff for other people.
Oh yeah.
Stuff's been there 1,000 years. Don't be chipping away at it like trying to take a piece home. Leave it for someone else to enjoy. I hate that. I hate when people, I know desecrate's a tough word because it makes them have a religious connotation, but I hate when people just like ruin the experience for someone else later on. Leave it be. I'm the one for always, and in Arizona now, arrowheads and pottery shards should be left behind. Leave them there. Take a picture, pick it up, handle it, check it out, but put it back. Let the next person enjoy it, because what is it going to do? You're going to put it in a box somewhere and forget you even have it and find it in 25 years and go, what's this piece of crap,
Yeah.
And so those are probably my biggest pet peeves. with a lot of people, because being a smoker, that's most people's pet peeves is why you got to keep smoking down in here? It's getting smoky in here. You know, they're always complaining about me about that. But you know, as far as treasure hunters being stubborn or stuck in their own thing, that's for their own thing. And like I said, I'll help anybody dig. You know, if you got the spot and you need someone, I'll explain to you how to get it, how to set the claim. I'll talk to you and look and try to figure out a way you can get a backhoe in there, make it easy for yourself. You know, I love that part of it. People getting their own experiences in. I just hate the trash whenever they destroy or ruin something for everybody else.
Right.
You know, just don't tear stuff up. Just don't mess things up for the next people coming up to check things out, unless it's something totally unsafe and you're doing something like saying, here's a very dangerous shaft next to a little roadway. Our ATV almost went in. We're going to bring in a backhoe and fill it in. I'm down with that, because if it's just some guy's old hole and someone's going to get killed, that's cool. But that to me is restoring things.
If you don't fill it in, at least mark it so other people can see it.
Well, nobody sees that stuff. They come around these mountain trails. Most of these old roads are just, you come around the corner and then suddenly, you know, there's a pit. And I see why people dump into them and stuff. But, and the same thing goes for these old mines. People just, you know, the old wood and stuff in them, they just start tearing everything out and they start creating, you know, a destabilized mine entrance, and just leave it the way it is. It's kind of cool for people to be able to walk into something kind of secure and safe, or at least stand outside and take a look at it and see what it is.
Right.
Quit graffitiing stuff, you know. Yeah, you were there. Take a picture, put it on social media. You don't have to put your name on it. You don't have to draw it in spray paint. I don't know how many times I'm so tired of smiley faces and peace signs spray painted in caves and stuff. It's like, oh, great. Yeah, that made the experience so much better. And we've left that stuff in when we videoed where people have done that, just so people see it and understand of how bad it looks. That some guy had to come through and bring a can of spray paint because he just had to leave his mark somewhere. And it's ridiculous. There's no reason for it.
So we end up talking about this particular subject, leaving the trash behind, a lot. My channel, the Treasure Vixens, we've made a YouTube career out of pulling trash out of the water, you know. And I think ultimately it's more depressing. There are times where it's just so gross. It's so gross. It's so depressing. You lose faith in humanity. You talk about going in those caves, like, way to ruin an experience. Like, it's so frustrating. We talk about that a lot. Us as YouTubers or TV stars, we need to take the time out to point that out to other people to try to prevent it from continuing to happen.
Here's the number one pet peeve. Take your potty break outside the mining cave. Quit doing it in the back. There's nothing I hate worse than turning the corner and I'm saturated with urine. I'm stepping in your poop and there's 5 billion flies.
Oh.
You just ruined everyone's experience.
Right.
I mean, it's like, we've all been there. You get back in this deep place and then you're like, what? Oh, great. You know, it's just horrible. Everybody decides they can't step outside somewhere or hold it. They have to go in that same spot. And literally, it's the worst bathroom in the world. And then they leave the chunks of toilet paper. So you're like, oh, my God, nobody's been in here. And, oh, great. Oh, everybody's been here. And they've left a deposit. So that is another one that actually disturbs me.
Yeah.
No one should have to play in somebody else's urine.
No, yeah, I think it's a very reasonable request. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So, but yeah, just always be safe and smart out there. I mean, but pick up after yourself, and if you're out there, pick up after someone else. You know, if someone else has left a little trash, if you pick it up, somebody else may not leave trash again.
Well,
and kind of keep it, because that's if you want to find the best way to keep BLM, state trust land groups, the Forestry Service off your back, clean stuff up. Because they actually are very grateful to people that do that sort of thing. And we've done that with trash bags of old mining camps where we've tried to go out and pick as much trash up as we could just to clean it up and make sure they know, hey, we came out and you got a dumpster, we can throw this in, we cleaned up that area. And they're cool. We don't make it an organized thing. We're going in for a week. We're going to go pick up the trash while we're there and haul it out with us.
Speaking of that,
I want to shout out to Jesse Feldman about that, because Jesse's such a cool guy. I know a couple times. He was like, if you take the trash bags and you clean all the trash up, when he packs people in, he says, tell me where it's at and I'll pick it up and load it on the horses and I'll pull it out for you guys. So that, which is another very cool thing the Feldmans have done for people in the past. So
that's
one
cool.
of the things
but that's a big deal. People don't realize from the 40s, 50s, 60s how much trash is in some of those places in the mountains from
Right.
those permanent mining camps, even still.
we encourage YouTubers on here. Whenever we have YouTubers on here that are treasure hunters, we encourage them to video that, show people, put that in your videos and show people that's part of what we do. You know,
Yeah.
so we really encourage people to do that and put it in their videos. Show it.
Backfill it back in. If you're prospecting and taking samples, backfill in your holes. It's protect the area you're working in, but it also helps with the erosion and stuff, you know, because people will dig stuff out and just, you know, it looks like a gopher's been through there. And, you know, you're just like, oh, really? Okay. We had to dig a hole everywhere. You know, if someone built a fire ring, use it, but don't make 10 more fire rings in that area because you just didn't like the other guy's fire ring, you know?
Let me do a shout out here real quick. Guardian of Chaos came here through Bourbon Soak Live.
Yeah, that's Juliet and Dave, the producer.
Right. Welcome.
Welcome. And what Wayne was talking about just a minute ago about Forest Service and stuff, back home in Washington State, I would take trash out of the mountains with me prospecting. And, and I would deliberately stop at the ranger station on the way down and ask to use their dumpster, and they'd always ask, where'd you get it? And I'm like, your forest, you know.
Yeah.
Another
good one.
Our forest, and you know.
Anytime you're on these old four-wheel drive and back roads, if you see a piece of metal or something in the road, I make it a habit of stopping and throwing it in the back of my pickup truck. Because there's nothing worse that ruins someone's day than they blow out a tire or the second tire or the third tire that day because something broke off of something and they left it behind. And when we were filming Legends, I did it several times. They were just completely thrown off by why I would stop suddenly. But it was to pick up this metal because I know someone's going to get a flat. And when you're in these curvy high mountain roads, that blowout could be someone's life going off a cliff. So it's, you know, just always try to practice, you know, just kind of keep, you don't have to be the big environmentalist. Just try to, you know, just be kind to where, you know, the place you like to go. Be kind back.
Be good stewards of what we've been given, you know.
Right. Like I said, we encourage the YouTuber people community to show that in their videos too. You know, don't just show it. Show you're doing that because it helps influence other people doing the same thing.
Help people out.
And that's one of the reasons we left some stuff in was not necessarily try to send the message because we realize it's always entertainment. People want to be entertained. The moment you try to, one of the things I've always done through chasing legends, and you notice nobody knows my politics, my religion, anything personal belief wise, for the most part, because I realize I don't want to sit on a pedestal in any way, a soapbox, and preach to people because that bores me to death when someone thinks they're smarter than me and wants to tell me what to do. I like to describe how we do things and how we think this works or how we think it works best for us. But the other factor is you can get little subtle things through to people by being entertaining about it.
Right.
And, you know, we'll just do that slight thing of one time and that, you know, people will notice. I'll say, hey, pick up that bottle, throw it in your pack. And we just try to slip it in. So we never really make much comment, but hope people practice what we're not preaching it. We're just seeing the practice of it happening. And I think that sometimes is more effective because people, if they're looking up to you or like what you're doing, they'll maybe get the same response as see some piece of trash and just say, okay, let's just pick it up. Because we saw them do it. They do it. So I can pick this up. And on your way out of anywhere, you're always lighter than when you came in. Unless you hit the mother load, you're always lighter when you go out. So you might as well fill up some of that space with some trash and find a dumpster.
Right. Well, that is that time.
Yeah, it is. Time flies.
Yeah, went quickly.
It's late for you guys.
Yeah,
We've been gone 2
10:30
hours.
or 10 o'clock, 2 hours, poof, goes
Well, it was
flies.
fun.
Well, glad you, hope you had as much of a good time as we did, Wayne.
And
We,
Uh,
the chat was very. I mean, a lot of people said today that this was a really great show. They really enjoyed you being on here, Wayne.
well, you need to have me back when the studio's done, and then I can sit there and start drinking, because then it gets much more fun.
okay, well,
Because slightly drunk me gets much more funny. Yeah. So,
well,
but no, yeah,
let me
chewing the
know.
fat. This is the treasure hunter thing, you know.
Let me know. Let me know. We try to keep it like friends around a campfire here, uh, BSing about what we enjoy doing, and it's all one form of treasure hunting or another.
Oh yeah, but no, this kind of thing. Anytime you need someone, you come down, and it's 2 days before, and the guy cancels. I'm one of those guys you can call, because I can usually slip it in and say, I got no problem. I'll do it. Yeah, I got no problem. You know, like I said, my favorite thing is sitting around the campfire, shooting the bull in the breeze, and sit there and play the guitar till 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah, usually when
So
people cancel
this fits right in with it.
usually it's last minute when they cancel out on us. Like,
Yeah, see, that's what. But I've done that before for several people. They said, "Oh my God, nobody can do it," and I'm like, as long as you give me time to throw some food in myself, I got no problem sitting down, because I'm West Coast. The rest of you guys, all you guys, it's getting late. For me, it's early. I get to go sit down, eat, go grab something to eat. And,
Right.
what?
That's only 7 there, right?
It's almost 8 o'clock.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we're
They're
not
2 hours
California.
behind us.
We changed our time again.
Arizona, one of the beautiful things about Arizona, it's always the same time. We never change our clocks.
Yeah.
Right.
The rest of you have daylight saving times, Colorado time, mountain time, this time, that time. We have Arizona time.
They
And
need
it's
to
that way
stop.
all year long.
They need to stop doing all that stuff. Period.
Well, that's probably why Arizona is such a great place to live, because we don't try to mess with time. You can't mess with time. It moves forward, and it just moves the same way.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. Well, you know how to get a hold of me, Wayne. When you get your studio all ship shape, we'll schedule you in for another time around the fire.
Yeah, sometime in 2035. So. Unfortunately, my IT guy is my son, and right now he's just not coming through for me. So I might need to get a new IT
You might
guy.
need to give him a little more money.
No. I feed him, and he's getting his laundry done right now. So
Right.
Step up.
he's got a place to sleep. So
There you
he should
go.
be grateful.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
But
Thank you for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wanted to say it's been a pleasure and everything, and great, and thanks, and I hope it was entertaining. Everybody had a good time.
Well, it looked like everybody was having a good time in the chat room. They were listening, paying attention, asking questions.
Yeah, I
That's
know
what
we
like.
did.
We had some.
But go check us. Here, I'll do my plug thing, because everybody's got to do their plug thing. Check us out on Chasing Legends and Legend of the Superstition Mountains on YouTube. So, and everything else in this spring, we got that Treasure Hunt of the Year. The Ides of March will be at Goldfield Ghost Town at the Mammoth Saloon, which will probably be around 5 or 6 p.m. or so. And we'll serve some food up, and not much in the way of entertainment. We hand out the awards. And then this spring, we'll what was it called? Lust for Gold, The Last Expedition or whatever. There's a documentary film coming out from Art Films. Those guys won an Academy Award, and they got a documentary film about Robert Kesselring's dig coming out. It hit a distributor, and that'll be out this spring. And I've seen 2 different cuts of it, and it's a really nice film. If you want to see the reality of treasure hunters, it's kind of funny. It's kind of sad, but it's a real true kind of nice film. It's entertaining, and it ties in a lot of stuff, and the most entertaining aspects of it is myself, Bob Schuss, Ron Feldman. We're all part of that, so you'll get to see little cameos of us kind of running things along there. But really a good film. That'll be out this summer, probably limited in theaters, and it'll probably be eventually end up on cable or somewhere on a network. And I'll be pushing that out there for people because I'm always proud of working with really good production companies.
Right on. Right
Very
on.
cool.
And catch me on the repeats of Beyond Oak Island on Sundays before Oak Island.
You
Any
could.
more plugs?
There's
Any
a
more shameless
link.
plugs for you?
What?
Anything
more?
else?
We got a film coming out next fall. That'll be a documentary, but that one I can't talk about because I'm in that, NDA thing right now, and it's just getting kind of bumping up off the ground. But that'll
Right.
be a very cool experience. If you're a treasure hunter, that will be one that'll probably go to film festivals mainly. It won't be really anything distributed to make money off of. And that'll be a very cool film because the part of that I wanted to work with the people was about the psychology. It'll be talking about the people and why they do it, not their treasure hunting stories, but the reason why, the regrets, the cost, because there is another cost behind it. There's a lot of divorces, broken families. And it would be interesting to hear from these guys, the successes and the non-successes of why they did it. And that film will be very cool, but that should be done sometime this summer, probably be out and available next fall in 2021. So like I said, the problem with TV and film is there's always a half a dozen things out there. You don't know when they're coming out.
Right.
So you're just kind of like spinning around. Hopefully you get the green light, and they usually give you the green light about 3 days before it comes out. So, then they say, "Oh, you can talk about it now." Well, hey, we were under a gag order about our own show until it ran. They said you can talk about it on social media after they've run all 6 episodes.
Right.
Wow.
And I'm like, how do you promote something when it's already run?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we know, from talking to people like you guys. We know that sometimes you're just not allowed to talk about it because of contracts. So that's why we're mostly interested in the person as opposed to the shows. They're on. We'd rather talk to the person about them.
Yeah.
I can't talk about the shows most of the time.
Yeah, and get Terry in there. Get Terry telling some stories.
Terry.
Yeah, we'll have to get Terry back. He's still here, so
Like to get the Feldmans in here.
yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, get
to have
Jesse.
the
Well, you
brothers.
know what? Jesse and Josh, but even see if you can wrangle Ron. Ron can tell a hell of a story. Their dad.
Their dad. I'd love to talk to his dad. Their dad.
Yeah,
But-
getting Ron to tell stories all night, just a trip, because he was even packing and working with Crazy Jake back in the mountains in the late 60s, early 70s. Ron has an autobiography out now. It's just fun to read because it gives you that insight on why somebody would do this, him running out into the superstitions with his brother and starting what developed into like what he has now. So
Right. Maybe I could talk someone to be a birds on someone's shoulder for us.
Wayne.
I wink wink, hint hint, subtle
well,
hint.
next time I'm down and I sit there and I'm talking to Ron, I'm going to tell him, because these guys get to the point where they want to retire from it.
Right. Oh, I know.
But all he wants to talk about is Dutch hunting when I'm sitting there. So it's kind of like, just pretend I'm there. Just pretend it's your friends. But
too.
Yeah, but yeah, Jesse and Josh, I'm not taking anything away from them, but I think they would admit their dad is just fascinating, fun to listen to, and he has a great sense of humor.
And the way they talk about their dad too. I mean, you can tell he's an awesome dude, because they just
good family.
Yeah.
The Schuses, the Feldmans, all these people, and one thing I always like to bring up to people is we always talk like, and I think if you ever see the clips for Lust for Gold, I talk about the downtrodden, iterant, broke prospector. But Tom Collenborn wasn't that. Bob Schuss wasn't. Ron Feldman wasn't. Clay Worst. A lot of these guys had great families, great lives, successful, happy lives, and then they just happened to be these treasure hunters.
right.
And they're fascinating individuals. Clay Worst once told a story about how he became a test pilot for the military because nobody had flown before, so there was no test pilot. So the 18-year-old kid becomes this test pilot, farm boy. And you're listening to it and you're realizing that had to be the best time to live, to be alive,
Right.
when there was no test pilot. So all you said is, I want to be a test pilot. And he made a career for a while in the military of crashing planes.
Cool.
But that was, and this individual is usually known for the Superstition Superstition Mountains, but then you listen to the story of his life. It's fascinating, everything that he's accomplished and done. So, and that kind of goes to that film next fall, is we wanted to explore more of that, because that's the unwritten thing. Like we've been talking here, you usually don't get very deep, and you don't want to get into their personal stuff, but
Right.
there is some stuff there, as people need to understand, is you don't have to throw it all away to do this. You can have a life, you can have your normal life, you can have a family, you can do things, and you can do this and not kill yourself over it.
Right.
You know, it's not worth just driving yourself nuts. If it, you know, at that point, then you lost the beauty of the thing to start with. So
yeah,
Very
that's
true.
one of the things that we like to talk to people about, is how they got started, what got them going, doing what they're doing.
yeah,
We've had a couple people on here that younger dudes that just dropped everything they were doing, put everything they had into going to Alaska, going to West Coast,
Chasing their dream.
yeah.
trying to live their dream, and it working out for them or it not working out for them, So, it makes for interesting entertainment, I think, anyways.
And in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you could do that. The 80s, 90s, now you can't do that the same.
Well, you can't. There's people that do it. We've talked
But
to them.
but they're living rough. They're living
They're
rough.
living. Well, a good example of someone who started out really rough with $5,000, a dream, and some homemade equipment was Ryan Cordova.
Cordoza.
What was that?
Cordoza.
Yeah, he's in Whitewater, Gold Rush Whitewater.
But he started off as a Portlandite, a Portlander. Saw some guys panning on the river, asked him a question. Next thing you know, he got into prospecting locally and wanted to go to Alaska, and he's been up there for years now.
Yeah.
Well, another guy you guys need to get in there is Casey Morgan from.
He's been on. Casey's been on.
Okay, good, because Casey and his wife, his family are good people too.
I'd like to get V in on the show next time I have Casey on. Yeah.
Well, then she'll do the talking.
Yeah.
Sorry, V, but
sorry, V. Yeah.
Casey's cool.
Yeah, Casey's just a cool dude.
Yeah. And I'm loving doing this because I get to talk to you guys. I get to hear about you.
Well, the funny thing is nobody ever points out, and it's funny to point out, is you're talking Josh and Jesse Feldman, you're talking Casey Morgan, you talk Tony Beach, you talk Parker, you talk Tim Saylor from Diggers. We're all in Arizona. So people watch these shows all over the place, and they don't realize all of us are stuck in Arizona. So Tony's down in Maricopa, Parker's up in Crown King. Most of us are Apache Junction and Phoenix, and it's so funny because people are like, how do you get on TV? I don't know. They just seem to pick us out of Phoenix all the time.
It happens, huh?
Yeah, it's just kind of funny how you look around and you realize, oh, I know everybody that's on television suddenly. It's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird being here. We are in the Midwest, finding little bits of gold here and there, talking to these people that are on TV, finding all this cool stuff, and taking all these adventures, and here we are. We get to talk to you guys. That's awesome for us.
Well, we're not that big of a deal.
Well, I know. Here. And I understand what you're saying, because we get the same stuff. People come on and you're going, oh, I'm so excited about being here. We look at each other going, what? We're just some guys.
Yeah, because you can catch all of us. You can catch all of us sitting at a table, and all you're going to think is that what a bunch of goofy bunch of idiots, because it's just,
we're all having fun.
Well, that's it. When we're around each other, you're having fun and goofing on each other, and I think it just kind of like people just kind of think, wow, they're kind of harsh, but they got to understand, me and Frank are brutal on each other.
Well,
I mean, absolutely brutal. But we're that good of friends. I mean, and we make fun of Woody then when he's not around, because that's, the best thing is pick on your friend when he's not there.
Yeah,
But and I want to do a shout out. One shout out I got to do. Rick Gwynn. I know he's recovering. He's been in the hospital. Rick had some issues and problems, and Woody has been in the hospital for over a month. He was COVID, and he was actually for about a week or so in a induced coma. So Woody is back talking. Seems like Woody's back on the mend. So it's great to know Woody Woodrow Wilson's going to be with us for a while longer.
Awesome.
Now, all the Flash fam, positive vibes, prayers, and all that for both those people.
We're taking the longest goodbye ever, aren't we?
Yeah, it's terrible. On that note, everybody, check out Legends of the Superstitions. They're linked to their channels down in the description. If you're not yet a subscriber, please hit that button, ring that bell, become part of the Flash fam. Everybody, next week we're having Kim and Russ Fisher from Eastern Expeditions on with us. That should be a really cool show. And everybody, until next week, may you always have a flash in your pan.
And
you know what he's gonna say next.
That's right, Jesse and Rose. Because you know it happens, right? Maybe one day too, we'll all meet you on the river. Good night, everyone. God bless. Thanks for being here.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Also, thank you all the super chatters. Richard, Ted,
Say hi to you tonight. Hi, Chrissy.
and
Great to see you in here tonight. Heavy Metals, good night.
Aaron, Snorkel Pirate. Appreciate it very much.
Good night, Thomas.
Hi guys.
See you next time.
Ray Russo.
If I don't see you before New Year's, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year. Life, brother. LBPA for the night.
That's right.